Good morning, my friends. I'm so excited. Oh, it's actually only morning for one more minute on Eastern time, but today it is time for yet another tea and jam with me. I should come up with a theme song for these things. Today, I'm so excited to be talking with my dear friend, Maria Sotnikova. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, then you've probably seen our posts from all of our adventures all over Atlanta. Before I go to the door to see if she's here, the virtual door that is, my teapot is boiling, probably because of Zoom's sound suppression. You can't hear it, but I better get it before it boils over. So today I'm having a kusmi tea, which is a nice soothing tea that has licorice and mint. And I just thought it would be quite delightful for this cold, cold day that we're having here in Atlanta. So let's see, is my friend Maria here? Maria, are you there?
I'm here.
Welcome. I'm so excited to see you. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm trying to stay warm as much as possible.
Yes, I know you're not a fan of the cold.
I sure am not.
So what do you do to keep yourself warm on a cold day?
Well, for most of the winter months, which is basically like, I don't know, November through March in Georgia, I am like permanently affixed to my space heater. Like it is another like bestie of mine.
Mm-hmm. Do you drink tea?
I do drink tea, yes.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite kind of tea?
I really like rooibos. Am I pronouncing that right?
I think that's how I pronounce it, but I'm sure there are different people who say it differently for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love rooibos because I'm not much of a caffeine drinker, and I find it to be kind of hearty and filling, and it's a nice way to sort of replace what would be black tea. And they say it's good for regulating your sleep cycles, so I'm all
Mm,
for that.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So the reason why we're having this conversation, which may just be between you and me, or people may be listening in, we have no idea, is that I am endeavoring to have this full length, Shannon tells a story about my journey with purpose, which actually I've developed these four tenets of purpose, possibility, passion, and power, and how we learn about ourselves through the working world. And because you are my friend, you've been along for the ride as I've been developing this project. And I'm curious about what you feel like you learned about yourself through the working world. So let's start by talking about what you do for work, and then we'll talk about all the other fun stuff that you do as you travel around. So, what is your job?
So I'm a data scientist in the urban planning field, which basically isn't your traditional data scientist. Most of what I do is data visualization. So I take numbers that have to do with like cities. So whether that is like the number of older adults that live in a city or the number of kiddos that go to school in a certain district or any type of demographic information, anything that you can quantify. I take all that and I respond to either questions that our local governments have to help them make data driven decisions. And one of the ways that I do that is by creating data visualizations. So that means either a really cute infographic that like has like happy smiling faces on it, or a map that shows where we need to focus our efforts on. or just like a dashboard where people can go in and like look up information if it's from like a really broad data set. So basically, my job is making numbers, which bore most people, into pretty and exciting and useful things.
So you take this stuff
Mhm.
and you turn it into a story that people can understand
I
visually.
do, yeah. There's actually a thing called story mapping that
Mhm.
I've done before where I've created a story framework, like a little website that you go to that has a story that tells the story of a neighborhood, for example. And then alongside that story are maps and images that support that storytelling.
Mm.
So it's definitely what I do. Yeah.
How did you get into that? It's like sounds so fascinating. Were you good at design? Like, did you have a sense of I'm good at this and therefore I should go here?
No, I've mostly just like stumbled around my entire like education and career path. I've always been very evenly left and right brained, where I excelled in like STEM subjects, but what gave me passion and purpose was creating art and things that were visually engaging. And so uh, I went to an engineering school for my background, for my undergrad, and realized at the end of that education that that wasn't what I wanted to do. That wasn't the type of job that I wanted to hold upon graduation. And so I, in my last like year of undergrad, applied for just a urban planning program that sounded interesting. I had taken a few like public policy classes that were about cities and like people and environment. And I really enjoyed those. And part of me, before I even became like an engineering major, wanted to actually go into architecture, but it was just too physically intensive for me. And so I felt like that would be a good compromise, is to maybe say, instead of the individual building form, study cities. And
Mm.
so I applied, I got in, and I had the best, 2, 3 years of my life, studying everything there was to learn about cities and planning and policy, and ended up at an internship that then turned into 2 different jobs. And now I'm here.
This is an amazing journey. So I feel like it might be helpful if we drop in a hint to folks that when you say that the architecture program might have been too physically intensive, that you're a wheelchair user.
I
So
am.
that how because I'm not sure if people don't know what it means to be an architecture student, or even how being a wheelchair and user might influence being a city planner. Can you like kind of investigate that with us and help us understand how your being in your body influences what you do, and why we need to be thinking about these things when we plan?
Yeah. So I think going into engineering as my primary education was very much a good fit for me, because my entire life I've had to uh, engineer my way out of problems, like problem solve.
Yeah.
Um, and so it came pretty naturally to me to be met with a barrier, whether it be physical or societal or policy based, and tried to reach a either agreement or a solution that would work for me in my day-to-day life. So You know, I am a wheelchair user and I am a power wheelchair user, which means that the way that I move about this world is very different from the majority of the population. And so the things that I think about as I'm moving, whether they be if there's a curb cut somewhere or if the sidewalk even exists in an area, are things that are constantly on my mind. And so with that, I think that also lends itself to my profession as an urban planner, and definitely influences the way that I both go about my work as well as my creative process.
Right. So the curb cut is a great example. I think it's sort of the go-to example that people a lot of times will use in terms of like the notion of rising tide lifts all boats, right? Like if we plan for accessibility for one portion of the population, it actually will create all kinds of helpfulness and access for lots of other places, right? Or lots of other kinds of folks. Are there other kinds of access that planning for people with disabilities has created other kinds of innovation and solutions that have benefited everybody that you can think of?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I would say automatic doors act in a similar way, where like if you're rushing out of a grocery store and you've got like your arms full of grocery bags, and you're one of those people that's like stubborn like me and wants to do everything in one go, and you don't want to have to like push your cart back or go back and forth between point A and point B. It's really helpful to have like a automatic door, whether it be one that just senses that you're there and opens for you, or if you just have to like nudge it with your elbow and it'll open for you as well. Like those types of conveniences are essential to independence for so many people.
Yeah. One thing that I've come to rely on in terms of getting through my life is that I get my computer to read to me all the time. It's always nice when something like the New York Times or the Atlantic has actually like hired an artist to narrate an article, but a lot of times they haven't done that. And so I just like highlight the text and get my computer to read to me. And I'm like, well, that's definitely something that was invented for people with disabilities that I'm taking advantage of.
Yeah, and for me, like speech to text, like any type of like assistant, like an Alexa or something, like or just I mean Alexa even isn't even like speech to text is so much more. But any type of voice assistant like that has been game changing for me. Like it helps me like make notes for myself, helps me like type out entire text messages to people. I know you like to send me a lot of voice notes, like voice to text notes. I've heard you make them before when you're outside and waiting for me to get out of my house.
They make me look like an idiot because they often do not get it right. I just saw one where I was like, well, that's a blaring typo. I need to stop doing that. I got to get better at actually typing.
I mean, the more you do it, though, the more it learns what your like word patterns are, and so it does learn from you, and it does get better. So
Yeah, I'm training the AI so that after I'm dead, it can like reinvent myself, and so that people will have my avatar here.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm getting people to tell me stories about themselves and about in a few different ways. So one question I tend to ask people in relation to this project is, what is the shittiest job you ever had, and what did you learn about yourself in the process?
Oh gosh. Um, there was one summer as a graduate student where I had an unpaid internship, And it was based around trying to categorize different types of potential policy solutions for various things, that, whether that be environmental issues or like technology issues. And it just involved like creating a giant database, almost like an algorithm, to like sort these things and determine like which were most likely to succeed and be adopted. And the whole internship was just a mess. Like, I remember I got sick with a respiratory infection the first week, and due to my disability, when I get sick, I get pneumonia, and that scares people. But for me, that just means I'm going to be out for a week, and then usually I bounce back. But when I told my internship like coordinator about that, they freaked out about it, and I had to consistently reassure them that no, it's okay. I'm going to be on antibiotics, and I'll be back in a week. Like, don't let go of my spot, my unpaid internship spot. Please let me have it. That was ridiculous in and of itself. And then when I did return, the internship was just like very poorly organized, and so we would either have nothing to do or too much to do. And it was me and like three other people. And whenever we would have like just too much to do, my mantra became like, make it stop. Like, it just like, it was like too much, and that also then became the mantra of my co-interns. And to this day, we still keep in touch, and every so often, whenever we're having a hard time, we bring back our favorite mantra of make it stop. And that sort of puts things into perspective as to how bad something is compared to the most terrible internship ever.
You feel like that's what you learned, is like it can't, like nothing can be as bad as this.
It taught me my resilience, and it taught me that like some things are beyond my control. And that I just have to wait for them to stop. Wait for it to end.
So that unpaid internships have become quite passe now, from what I understand. Right?
Yeah,
like
this is like a decade ago at least. Yeah.
It's interesting. I guess I have mixed feelings about this. I get it. I understand why it's changed. I think in certain places that I've worked, I'm not sure how things could shift in order to provide those opportunities for certain students, And I guess I wonder if the student is, receiving some kind of class credit, or, it depends on what the structure is. I guess I feel ambivalent about like completely making it where all internships have to be paid.
Yeah, but even if you're paying for, or even if you are being awarded like class credit, you're still paying for those credits. Like, it's still unpaid labor.
Yeah.
And you're paying for it.
True. Yeah.
You're
paying to work. So that's kind of backwards. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. It's also interesting because I feel like one of your mantras now is no dying,
It is, yes. It's my only rule.
Yeah. Because I feel like knowing you now, one of the things that's happened since you had that internship is the pandemic. And I feel like COVID has really had an outsized impact on the disability community, which is really unfair.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So you probably wouldn't have even taken an internship like that if you were going through school now, would you?
I don't even know what I would have done.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, at least we have masks. I mean, that's one thing that the pandemic did for us is it definitely changed our comfort with wearing masks and keeping ourselves safe in that way.
It definitely changed mine. Like my entire life I've known I've had like respiratory issues, and my
Mm-hmm.
parents have always cautioned me to like, cover my face if you hear someone coughing, or like get away from someone coughing or sneezing. And I would never listen to them, and inevitably I would, catch a cold here and there, and it'd be hard on me. But I think at this point, like wearing a mask for me is second nature,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, it it's not something that I even think about anymore.
Yeah.
And it kind of it's kind of weird to me too, because like I'm someone that does have respiratory issues, so if anyone, I would have trouble wearing a mask, and to me it's like one of the easiest things ever. So when someone complains to me that like how difficult it is to wear a mask, I just I can't relate to that. It's hard for me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You kind of just want to be like, buck up. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what really brings us together today is that I want to talk to you about this other identity you have, which is that you are a costumer supreme. You are one of the most creative human beings I've ever known. You you celebrate Halloween for about 6 months out of the year. Definitely for the 31 days of October, but really you kind of extend that out in various ways. You have an extraordinarily fun social media campaign to follow. And you also, in the before times, used to go to Dragon Con and have like a different costume for every day. What other ways do you embrace your costuming? I think I feel like I'm missing something around that.
I just enjoy any excuse to dress up. I mean, yes, it's true that I think every day should be Halloween. But like really any excuse to dress up, whether it's like a wedding or a festival. Like I just love the idea of choosing a theme and then like seeing how far I can take it.
Do you remember when you first understood that about yourself? Like, how early did that become a thing for you?
I think very early on. I definitely think I get it from my grandma. Um, so my grandma was a diva of a woman. Like she was gorgeous and she knew it. But she also really enjoyed sharing beauty with others. And so that meant um like not only dressing up herself, but gifting beautiful things to others and making other people feel beautiful. Um, and so I think that as a child, I spent much of my, very, very early years around her. And I think that really rubbed off because I saw both the like fun part of like being creative and what purpose it can give you, but also it showed me the power in that. And being able to think outside the box and create something out of nothing. My family is Russian, and so my grandma and my parents and me for a very brief time grew up in the Soviet Union where there was a lot of scarcity. And so the things that she was able to do with little always amazed me.
Mm. So she didn't go move out. Did she stay there and you guys came here?
Yep.
Okay. Wow. So you came here and you embraced your creativity through costuming. So now you you make these elaborate costumes. I'm trying to remember, one of them involved like creating a structure that was like onto the back of your wheelchair. What was that one? You were poison ivy, maybe?
Yes, I did a like Batman poison ivy costume. And I always say that I use what I have, and very conveniently I have an entire structure around me at all times that is capable of being decorated. And so I built a frame that sort of extended the back of my wheelchair. And from that frame, I hung just like dozens and dozens of like garland leaves that created this like cascade of flourishes. And on my headrest, which I lean back on my wheelchair, I put a giant flower, like a red, like gorgeous, like paper flower. And if you remember the movie, the poison ivy character played by Uma Thurman, she at one point like falls into a flower and is like consumed by the flower. And so that's what that represented, is my being consumed by that giant red flower.
I was just seeing if I could pull it up easily so I could show folks if you're open to that, because it's like so stunning. Is that the most elaborate photo costume you've ever made?
Um, it might be just because of the amount of like time that went into it.
Uh-huh.
Um, I did definitely have like a breakdown during that process where it was my first time working with hot glue and fabric.
Uh-huh.
And so I created a bodysuit that I hot glued a bunch of like leaves onto to match her outfit. And then when I went to go put it on, it no longer fit over my hips because the glue had hardened and it no longer had enough stretch to it to actually go over my body. And I mean, I'm a tiny human, and to not have something fit me was just like traumatizing. And I remember reaching out to friends to see if anybody could help me, and realizing my mistake like very quickly. Like this, I should not have done hot glue on fabric. That was a mistake. Materials are everything. And then I was very fortunate enough to find a SCAD fashion student who came in to save the day and basically taught me how to add stretch by paneling, which means that we cut the very sides of the bodysuit out and then added just like stretchy fabric on the sides, just enough to where it didn't really make a difference in how the costume looked, but it gave me enough like wiggle room to wiggle into it. So yeah, that was quite the elaborate costume and learning experience for me.
Okay. All right. I didn't find that one, but I found another one. It looks like you as Elmo. Are you open to me sharing that one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Um, and I extracted it, so I'm not showing your social media. So tell us about this one.
So this one was actually the Halloween uh of the first year of the pandemic. And this is before we had vaccines, before I felt comfortable like really going out and celebrating with my people in public.
Mhm.
And I felt like I still had to commemorate the occasion, even though I felt like the world was on fire. And so I felt like the best way to encapsulate how I felt was to dress up as the Elmo in Flames meme.
Oh,
If you've seen that one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was thinking it was the dog in the house going, "This is fine," but
I've
it
done that too. I've done that
really.
too. Yes. But Elmo was for 2020 and that dog was 2016
Oh, you
for
did that
reasons
before.
for reasons that are very obvious to some.
Oh, in 2016. Oh, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see if I can find one more to share with folks. So, will you talk a little bit about what Halloween means to you? Like why you're so interested in Halloween and costuming? Like what do you think this other than like learning about from your grandmother or just I know. Can I show them Barbie?
Sure, yeah.
Of course
This
this is
is a recent one.
yeah, this is so timely for this year. Like everybody's into Barbie this year, right? Well, not everybody, but a lot of folks are. Okay, here we go. I wonder how much work this one took too. Okay, move out of the way so I can. It's like the screenshot that I took is in the way of the Zoom, so I can't hit share screen. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so this was a costume that I came up with for the Barbie like movie this summer. I held a event for my friends at our local drive-in, and we basically parked our cars and like did a little picnic setup and had a giant boombox that provided us with audio, and so we had a really good time. And this is what I wore. I dressed up as wheelchair Barbie, and her name is Becky, and she has a very interesting backstory where Mattel created her in conjunction with a like disability nonprofit. Um, and then upon her creation, they realized that like none of the environments that Barbie uh exists in, whether it's like the dream house or those I didn't have a dream house, but I had a like suitcase collapsible uh like little play area for Barbie. Um None of those fit her wheelchair. And so they said that they would modify the like greenhouse to make it accessible, but they never did, and they just discontinued Becky instead. And so I really wanted to make a statement about that. And I actually tied it to an advocacy post that asked people to sign on a petition and to contact their elected officials about some potential funding for making housing more accessible. So yeah, it came full circle for me from dressing up and being creative to advocating for more accessible housing, like a good urban planner.
I love that. I actually used your post too because it was so striking and helpful and well written. So thank you. So back to my question, like why Halloween? Why do you think it's like your jam?
Well, I mean, as a kid, obviously, it was mostly about the candy. I just enjoyed. I had such a big sweet tooth. Like, I would eat anything that was like not an unnatural flavor. That would be my first pick. But the older I grew and the more adult money that I had, it became a way of expressing myself in a like I guess in a way that at first I thought was like an appropriate way because like I said, like I'll take any excuse to dress up, and if that gives me the right to also just like be a bit creepy or a bit cheeky, I will jump on it. But it's not something that I do in my everyday. And so to me, Halloween is an excuse to do those things and to really try to celebrate my creativity, um, and really just be myself by being other things and other people.
Yeah. So I think the reason why I wanted to go there with you on this is because at this point, I've through the GCDD storytelling project, I've interviewed a number of different people with disabilities, and I've noticed quite a trend of folks with disabilities being super into Halloween.
Yeah.
And I mean, I already knew you. And then I was like, wait a minute, so does my friend Maria. And then I would be like, oh, so does my friend Maria. And so I was like, kept tagging it back to you. And I think it was about the time when I interviewed the guy who works at the haunted house up in like the, super northern suburbs of Atlanta, where you want to be like, oh, I don't even know how they call this Atlanta. It feels like South Chattanooga. But he's like in one of those haunted houses working for like 6 weeks straight or something. And he's like doing the elaborate makeup just like you do. Oh, and I wanted to say about that Elmo costume, like, it wasn't just the elaborate headdress. It was like that makeup. You have such a flair for makeup too.
Thank
It's
you.
like not just Halloween, it's also all these other like year-round situations that you put together. I kind of have this like theory that's formulating in my head that like Halloween is a time for folks that consider themselves other in some way to like embrace and like take that back. It's a reclamation. So like do you have thoughts about that?
I mean, it's where I get to shine. Like every day I encounter obstacles and challenges and have to think of creative ways to do things. And this Halloween gives me an opportunity to practice that creativity without the pressure of having to succeed.
Whew.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what it is, right? I think that's the thing. Like we're always under the notion that we can't try something on unless we think it's going to succeed. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if we had more opportunities to just play and practice and try without that notion of the end product?
Yeah, that's what Halloween is for me.
Well, but why does it have to be Halloween? Something that's sort of pigeonholed and given like this child-centered, typically, uh, and just one time of year. I think that must be what I'm trying to explore through this teapot project. because it was that time in my early 20s when I thought struggling, I always call it wandering, but it felt like I was failing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was literally trying on one identity after another. Oh, I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. I'm going to work in a bar. I'm going to temp. I'm going to substitute teach. I'm going to work in a bar. I was just like all these different things in such quick succession. And I was told by my parents, by society, that that was failure. But what if it wasn't that? It was just trying on costumes, you know?
Yeah.
Like I went to the thrift shop about a month or so ago and I got myself a giant pair of khaki pants
Mm.
because that is what the quintessential late 90s, early 2000s working world was to me,
Mhm.
especially when you were like in those kinds of jobs. Like if you were working in a restaurant or temping, you had to have your khaki pants always on call for, either the restaurant job that you would have the t-shirt that they would make you buy as you started your job,
Yeah.
or if you were at a nicer restaurant, then you would have your white button-down shirt. Or if you were temping, you would often have to wear the khaki pants. It's like the khaki pants, and also they were like huge and pleated, and you could probably fit like a whole human being in one side of it, you know. But
Yeah.
what is a work uniform but a costume?
Yeah. Do you have a work uniform for the workshops that you hold and the various, career activities that you fulfill?
Well, I mean, the thing is, because I don't leave the house much anymore these days, I definitely love to think about what I'm going to wear when I get to go do something.
Mm-hmm.
I did drag out. So here you can see some of it, but I got out all of my costume stuff for you today.
Oh,
So I didn't know if you wanted to play dress up with me a little bit.
let's
Uh,
do it. I mean, if it's anything like the outfit that you wore to the fern bank with me, I think it's gonna be great.
what did I wear to the Fern Bank? I can't even remember. This is the problem with perimenopause. What did I wear to the Fern Bank?
It was just this like the most interesting array of like texture and color and pattern that I've seen put together that worked. Like it worked.
Coming from you, that means a lot. So, because I'm an auntie to the masses, I keep my costumes not buried too deep in case I ever get to like play dress up with the little girls in my life. So I have like all of the fun little things just in case we get to play tea party. I have
Uh-huh.
noticed that some of my costume pieces are like kind of a little old lady type stuff because they came from like when we cleaned out my grandmother's. Speaking of grandmothers, like
Mm.
also, and my grandmothers could not have been more different from each other. One of them was very much a peacock, like well, I learned more in the last few years that a peacock is actually a male in the
Mm-hmm.
peahen peacocks. Um, do you think that people tend to have like a genre for their costuming?
I
Do,
mean, I think there are people that are into different types of costuming. Whether, I mean, there are your vintage girlies, like there are people that are solely into wearing vintage things.
or
And even there, it like separates into like decade and time period.
Mhm.
Um, there are people that are into recreating animated things, whether that's like your, basic, movies like Pixar and stuff, or actual anime from Japan.
Mhm.
Um, there are people that are really into um video games, so they'll choose like a random character from a video game franchise and Like that is their thing that they do, is that franchise.
Hmm.
Um, there's so many things. And then there are people that just like love Halloween and love being creepy, and so they're like go with all the blood and the gore.
Yeah.
Um, and then there are the girlies that just love being sexy and they'll have like an excuse to wear skimpy outfits and cat ears and call it a day.
Yeah. I know it's really hard and weird when you start searching on, Amazon or something for your Halloween costume, and it's like everything is sexy, whatever. Just like makes you feel sad about the state of the world.
There's nothing wrong with being a sexy werewolf or a sexy, I don't know, bunny.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's even at Drawing Calendar is an entire community of people that dress up as Playboy bunnies crossed with other characters. Like that's a thing.
Really?
Hmm.
Like Playboy bunny uh zombie?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's wild. This is one of my favorite costume pieces. So for several years, I was some version of like a saloon girl. I have this
Hmm.
costume that's like got kind of a little bit of a tutu, and so I'd wear that with this thing. I like this. When I was in my early nonprofit industrial complex days, I would host this fundraiser. It's like a variety show, like a talent show. And I don't know why I felt the need to create a character to be the host, except for somehow I felt like my personality wasn't big enough to do
Mm.
this. And so I developed this alter ego. Her name was Miss Destiny Shantae.
Oh,
Um, like if she had a thingy, she would have been a drag queen, but she just was a washed out 70s lounge singer.
I mean, at that point you could do burlesque.
Right? Exactly. Yes. But this was small town, Virginia, like a college town. So um, Miss Destiny would come breezing into town once a year to host this show. And one of the things that was helpful about this character is that I worked for the YMCA and we had a thrift shop.
Mhm.
So I would just go to the thrift shop and get all of the wildest stuff. And it was an opportunity to sort of like highlight, like, hey, y'all, the thrift shops here in town, go get your cool costume pieces or, what have you. And so Miss Destiny's character arc developed over time. Eventually, we learned that she came from Florida and that Dolly Parton had a restraining order against her.
Ooh.
That she'd had one song that had almost made it into the top 40 in the 70s. And that song was titled Don't Leave Me in the Lurch at the Church. Um, yeah. And so eventually I started singing karaoke to like fill time between acts. I can't believe I haven't thought about Miss Destiny in years
I
until.
think you should bring her back.
You think so?
I think so, yeah.
I don't know. We have such wild and magical creatures in town. When I think about somebody like Gina Rikiki or Mark Kendall, like, I don't know. But it was like somehow just bringing that hat out, all of a sudden I remembered that former time in my life.
Ooh, I like that headband.
Yeah, I didn't think about it as a headband until just now. I'd always thought of it as a bow tie.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the bow tie because it reminds me of clowns.
Oh,
And that is like my one thing is I do not do clowns. And unfortunately, a lot of people have got into doing clown like cosplay this year. And
hmm.
I had to really avoid it like on the internet. Like I would have just scrolled past every image I saw because it gives me the heebie-jeebies.
There's a formal title for clown phobia, right?
I don't know what is that.
I'm gonna look it up. Coulrophobia. Coulro phobia. Coulrophobia.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely have that. Not a fan.
Okay, I'm gonna roll the dice and you tell me when to stop.
So,
Okay, 56.
okay.
Tell me a story about yourself at the age of 56.
At the age of 56?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. So that would mean that I would be like, hmm. So I'm a millennial, right? And so like before me came, Gen X and boomers. And I feel like contextually 56 is like right in between like Gen X and boomer. Like if we were to speak about it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um but I'm just gonna use a boomer and the stereotypes that exist about them. Um and I would hope that at 56 there would be a different, more positive set of stereotypes about a 56-year-old millennial.
Yeah.
Like, my hope would be that I would stay creative and, more importantly, stay curious, and not allow the, years of time to cement the way that I see the world. And I already feel old, like when I see like even like a 25-year-old or someone younger, like that's Gen Z, like they're literal children to me. Um, but I still hope that I can relate to the youth and to at least have the patience to hear them out and to empathize as much as I can.
Yeah, I hear you. It really is all about perspective. I mean, I actually have spent quite a bit of time with folks who are significantly older. Like in the last couple of days, I had lunch with a man and a woman who were um, 89 and 74, respectively.
Mhm.
And the day before that, I spent some time in a medical setting with a woman who was 80. So um, it's interesting. I think it's really helpful to have intergenerational relationships
Mhm.
because I agree we need to pay attention to our youth. And I also think we need to pay attention to our elders. I think both have something to tell us.
Yeah, to bring that back to my experience with my grandma, she passed away at the age of 87.
Mm.
And until her dying day, she was consistently flirting with younger men and trying to connect to people that were younger than her at the same time as demanding respect from them because she deserved it. Like she had lived through a lot and had a lot to offer. Um, but she was always like asking me like what the latest trend is, rather than like what's trendy in fashion. Because she wanted to be ahead of the curve. Like
Oh,
it's just amazing.
yeah.
And I wanna be like my grandma. I wanna live much past 56 and still thrive off of like connecting with the youth and being interested with what is new in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So 56 is actually um not that far away from me. You are one of my intergenerational relationships. So I would like to say that at 56, I'm going to be handling my aging gracefully, which is getting harder and harder to do. I would like to have taken a few more of those amazing trips, like my Ireland trip last year.
Yes.
And I want to be in love with somebody who loves me back. So that's my manifesting story for today.
Okay.
I love you more than my luggage, Maria.
Me too.
I thank you so much for your time today. I should probably let you get back to work. I know this was your lunch hour.
Yeah.
What's something that you want to leave folks with in terms of power, passion, purpose, and possibility?
I think creativity feeds all of those. It feeds into purpose, it feeds into passion. It will ignite the flame of all of those things. So try to really foster that creativity at every opportunity that you get. Make the world a more beautiful and creative place.
So does that mean I should go to my next meeting dressed like this?
So wasn't there a rule that was like put on all of your jewelry and then before you leave the house, like take off a couple of things? I think that's where this is coming into play. I think the headband is top. Like I love that.
I'll take
but the boas might be a bit much.
Yeah.
Just a little bit much.
Yeah. I think that was Coco Chanel who had that rule. So yeah. Wise words. Well, thank you so much for your time. And thanks everyone who's tuned in and listening. This is going to be available on YouTube in perpetuity, unless Maria says, take that down. All right. Thanks everyone. I'm a little teapot coming in real performance in 2024. Y'all have a great day. Take care. Bye.